What's going on, you guys? How you guys doing? Dogg, Anti-Imperial, the chill here. One name, three personalities. Dogg, Anti-Imperial, the chill. All right, so slavery and freedom. Some people still say, like you'll still hear sometimes people say like, oh, we're still slaves, or it's still kind of like slavery and things like that. And I think I've done a video before that's like, we're not slaves. Like, nobody tells us at 6 o'clock we have to report to whatever field and work for free. We're not slaves. But this is kind of like that concept when you think about slavery and freedom. The way you can kind of think about it, and the concept, the way you can think about it is kind of like this. So, ownership or entrepreneurship, owning your own business, that's kind of like freedom, right? And if you have to work for somebody to depend on your bills, that's kind of like not being really free. And I understand that, of course, slaves they will work for free, right? And nowadays, if you have a job, no matter who you work for, you're not working for them for free. You get paid. This is the thing, though. Slaves worked for food, and slaves worked for shelter, for a house, for a place to stay in, right? So slaves used to work all day for food and for a roof over their head. That's what they worked for. Slaves worked for food and shelter. You could make the argument that nowadays, those who work for other people, if you're an employee, if you work for someone or you work for a corporation, you work for a business, the only difference is, not only difference, but the main difference is, which is the same, is if that made any sense. The main difference, which is the same, is that slaves work for food and shelter. Now you get a paycheck. They took the food and shelter away. Now you get a paycheck for your work, but with that money, you go buy food and shelter. When you get paid, people go buy groceries for the house. People pay everything around their house. They pay the water bill. That's your house. They pay the electricity bill. That's your house. They pay the mortgage or rent. That's your house. That's the shelter. Your mortgage or rent, your electricity bill, your water bill, your Wi-Fi, your cable. That's all connected to your home. That's all connected to your shelter, to your apartment. That's the shelter aspect. So the only difference now is that you work, you get a paycheck that you spend on food and shelter. Slaves worked, they didn't have to get the paycheck, they got directly food and shelter. So that's kind of like the only difference, is that slaves got food and shelter directly. They didn't have to go through the paycheck process. And today, you get the paycheck, but you spend it mostly on food and things in your house, shelter. So in both cases, you work for food and shelter. In both cases. Slaves, they worked all day, they got food, and they got a place to stay. You work all day, you get a paycheck that you spend on food and things surrounding your place to stay. It's the only difference. So, absolute freedom would be if you can do things at your own time. Absolute freedom would be, that's why people say you should have multiple sources of income. Absolute freedom would be, if I get fired from this job, I don't need this job to pay my food and shelter. I don't need this job for my groceries. I don't need this job for my electricity bill. That's shelter. That's part of my house. My water bill, that's shelter. That's connected to my house. My mortgage, my rent, that's shelter. That's connected to your home. My cable bill, electricity bill, Wi-Fi, cable bill, that's shelter. That's connected to your home. So if you're talking about slavery or freedom, the only way that a person, I guess you could say, for lack of a better argument, the only way a person can be purely free is if you do not depend on one job for what you need. That's the only way you can be purely free. And that's why even if you work a job, you should find another source of income. That's why even if you work a job, you should find either being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, do something with social media, do something in your spare time. You shouldn't just sit on that one job, because if they fire you and take that job away, then what's up with your food and shelter? It's like being a slave. And so that's the way I can understand the argument of people that say that even though we work at a job, working at a job, we're still slaves because you're not an owner, right? You still need that money for food and shelter. Just like slaves needed to work so that at the end of the day, they got food and shelter. But besides that, there's really no comparison to slavery. And as far as being an entrepreneur or an owner, I'll do this in like another Diversity Outspoken. But as far, maybe the next one. But as far as being an entrepreneur or an owner, not everybody can do that. So even if you're working at one job, you need to have another source of income somewhere. So you're not a slave to that one job, depending on that one job for all your food and shelter. I love you guys. Take care. Have a great day or great night, depending on where you are in the world. Dogg, Anti-Imperial to chill. You guys, love you guys. Take care. Check out the video right there. Check the video right there. Take care. Peace. Bye-bye.